Hello, this is Dan Tabor from Cinemax.co, and today I'm going to be taking you through the latest release from Cult Epics, Sylvia Kristel from Emmanuelle to Chabrol, and this is from Cult Epics, and this was written by Jeremy Ritchie. This was an Indiegogo project, and I wanted to start off by doing a little size comparison just so you can understand how massive this book is. I'm using a copy of Naked Over the Fence, which I'm going to be talking a bit about in this review. For reference, here you can see this is a Blu-ray. I'll even take it out. The size of the Blu-ray compared to the size of the book. The book is quite large. It's kind of a coffee table volume, or a coffee table book, if you will. And it basically dives into Sylvia Kristel's career. And it doesn't do it in the sort of traditional sense. What Jeremy is very quick to note right off the bat is there's already been 2 autobiographies on Sylvia Kristel's life, and instead of rehashing that and sort of leaning into the more salacious details of her life and her very sad and tragic end, he's decided to sort of take us through her life through her films and her filmography. And by doing that, the book is a very practical tome that allows you to go through her filmography and reappreciate it in a way most people have not, myself included. I'm not going to lie. I came into this review as being a fan of the Emmanuelle series, and I had just been doing, funny enough, I had just been doing a rewatch of the series, inspired by, I don't know, the earworm of the Emmanuelle 3's theme. Emmanuelle, 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 goodbye, Emmanuelle, Emmanuelle, Emmanuelle. And I wanted to see if it held up. And the first thing I noticed about that first film is how enigmatic and sort of like alluring Sylvia Kristel was. Sure, it's a softcore movie, but she puts on a really good performance. She's got a presence that you can't detract from that. You can't say, yeah, she doesn't have it. And she does a great job in that film, and that kind of put me down the rabbit hole to be curious about what else she's done in her career. And this book, lo and behold, shows up, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to use this and go through some of her other filmography. And the way this book works is it gives you a very informative and accessible sort of trajectory. Cult Epics have also put out this, which I'm going to also be reviewing, Sylvia Kristel, the 1970s collection. So it kind of, in conjunction with this book, to kind of give you 4 more films that have not had good releases here in the U.S. So, Playing with Fire, Pastoral, 1943, Mysteries, and Julia are all contained in this. And I'm going to be reviewing this eventually, but this kind of led me to this, which then led me to this. It's been a real journey. It really has been. So, Jeremy Ritchie decided to do this book not on her personal life because it's already been covered, but her actual filmography to, I think, give her people who enjoy her Emmanuelle films a broader perspective on her filmography, because she's done so much more other than those films. She's done I think almost 60, and those are a mere 3 films. So the Dust Jacket's really good on this thing. Like I said, it was an Indiegogo, but what happened is it was actually released by Cult Epics, and this is a quality volume. I'm always kind of apprehensive about Kickstarter projects because people get them and you can tell somebody cut corners or whatever. That is not the case with this at all. The Dust Jacket is a wonderful gloss. The inner cover is actually gorgeous here. You can see this lovely portrait of Sylvia, and you can see Jeremy Ritchie. But here you can see it's a lot of thought went into laying this book out and how this book would be set up. So given this book is on Sylvia Kristel, there's a lot of spicy bits. So, I've kind of earmarked a couple pages I just wanted to go through. So it is dedicated to Sylvia Kristel, who died in 2012 due to cancer, which is just, I think she was smoking from the age of 11, I believe. So this book goes from 1973 to 1981, and it covers sort of her, we'll get through here to the cult epics, Sylvia Kristel from Emmanuelle to Chabrol by Jeremy Ritchie. Here you can see there's a publisher's note, the author's note, the introduction. The author's note is interesting because there he sort of lays out how he's going to capture this woman's life and how he's going to lean out of the salacious and more into her work. I mean, her personal life is encapsulated in this book, but it's more about her filmography. So there's also a section on Dutch cinema in the 50s to the early 70s. I found this fascinating because the other piece of this is she started out in Dutch and French films, and if you're not fluent in Dutch and French films, you might not know a lot about that. So he gives you sort of like a base, sort of, I guess, a foundation in those sort of times in that country, so that way you can appreciate. This is all about learning. This is like, I compare this to the Rosetta Stone of Sylvia Kristel's career, because I'm going to get to that in a minute, how it worked for me, but like it gives you more tools, it gives you more context, it gives you more of a sort of a peek into this woman's life through her filmography, and it's more about the films, and in that respect, it's a very practical and utilitarian sort of take on her life that you can use multiple times. Like, some of these sections I'm going to read, or I've read because I've been curious about the films, and some of them I've saved for films I'm actually going to be watching. So it's a really interesting way to dip in and out and keep you coming back to the volume. So it's got the selected bibliography, unmade films, which it dips into some of the films that were not made, which is kind of interesting. There's also a great interview with I wouldn't say, there's an interview with the author where he talks about the films that might have made Sylvia's career if she had actually gotten them. So here's the introduction, the author's note, early years. It talks a little bit about Sylvia's upbringing through interviews. A lot of this stuff is pulled from context, historical context. It's not people looking back, it's people happening or talking about things that were current, which I really enjoy, because the thing is like a lot of people sort of look back on this as Sylvia Kristel's or Emmanuelle's films, when these were actually films before they were films with her in them, or a good bit of them. So it kind of tries to take the original historical context and appreciate the films based on that. And so this is the bit on the Dutch films. We're going to find my first little red thing that says, okay, this is Frank and Eva. This is actually her first film. And here you can see it has the Netherlands on it, the production company is Scorpio. This is all stuff that it's not readily available. Like, I was here. We're going to skip ahead a little bit. I'm trying to make it so I don't have to edit this video too much, because if I hit a spicy bit. So this is where things get interesting, and where, like, what I say is the context. Here's Naked Over the Fence. This is the original poster. There's no Sylvia Kristel in this poster. Naked Over the Fence is this really, really, really charming Dutch comedic noir based on a novel that was big at the time. And what happened is it encapsulated two things that were really big in the Netherlands at the time, which was kung fu and pinball. And you wouldn't have known that unless you've read this book. And because when I was reviewing the Blu-ray for Cult Epics, I had done my basic research, and there really wasn't a lot out there. But what happened is once I got this book and I read the little synopsis of it, I was like, holy cow, this film is so amazing. And there's so many, like, they get into the political context, the social context, Sylvia's life at the time, all this stuff that, you don't normally get. You're not going to get from Wikipedia. You're not going to get from the internet. This stuff is just not on the internet. And it's sad because it gives a whole new dimension to this actor's career that you're not going to get otherwise. So, great example. This is the original this is the poster for Naked Over the Fence. And then what happened was Sylvia Kristel gets big, and now she is front and center on the poster, Sylvia Kristel in Naked Over the Fence, and everybody else is like kind of dumped down into the bottom. And you'll see this a lot. And she plays a pop star in the film called Lily, and they basically kind of dyed her hair blonde, Marilyn Monroe sort of prototype, but she sings her own songs, and they're actually really good. She's definitely got a voice and a presence, and this film kind of sets that up. Like, after watching her in this, like, you realize she's got a great presence, and not only that, but for the time that she's in this film, she does an excellent job. Here you can see another one where basically they took a still from there's like one sort of saucy scene in the film, and you can see they put Sylvia front and center yet again because, Sylvia's going to sell the tickets. Let me just not put this one page up to the camera. Here you can see the Emmanuelle. There's multiple posters from multiple countries, and this Czech Emmanuelle poster is just like, it's just amazing. And what the author's done here is gone and like reprinted these artworks and gotten the originals so that way he could present them in the best possible manner. So the way this book works is it's essentially 20 films from 1973 to 1981, and you get to see sort of the evolution of her career, sort of doing Dutch films and sort of doing like Dutch films and bit parts into starring roles. From, this is one of her French films, No Pockets and a Shroud, and eventually the book kind of works its way into her American career. And they pull stills, which the stills are always beautifully printed. The cardstock of this paper it's a semi-gloss. It's amazing. They put a lot of quality into this book, which I wasn't expecting. They really did her a service, and the book feels like it's worth it. So you would then assume that, its subject was worthy of it. This is one of the weirder ones, The Fifth Musketeer. This was when she was, this is a German-Austria production. Then we eventually kind of break into her American films, which started with The Concorde, Airport 1979, which is in 1979, which is a few years, probably about 79. So about 5 years after Emmanuelle, she eventually sort of jumped over to doing American films. There's a lot of sort of conspiracy theories about other films she had applied for, but she didn't really want to she didn't like films with violence in them, and she didn't like films that were just like sexploitation. So she had a very sort of, she was very careful about the films she did. So let's see here. There's another one in here I wanted to go over. That was really cool. But, I'm trying to, not show the whole book. Private Lessons, which was her 80s film, which was boner comedy, which a lot of people know her from. It's probably the one I saw her first in before I had actually seen, Emmanuelle, because, who didn't watch Friday After Dark when they were growing up in the 80s? I had watched a couple of hers because she actually was in Lady Chatterley and Emmanuelle, which were the two staples of Friday After Dark. So this is the Japanese poster for Private Lessons, which is amazing. There's a lot of Japanese posters in there. And they're pretty spicy in here, so I don't want to put them front and center on the camera. Here you can see that there's multiple interviews with Sylvia Kristel. There's interviews with directors, people who worked on the films. There's a lot of breadth to the context here, which is great. But the thing is what this book does, and it does perfectly. These are some stills from Lee Chatter's Lover. Is it takes somebody who a lot of people sort of wrote off as it's the woman from Emmanuelle, and saying, but look, she's had this great career. These are all the films she's been in. These are all the people that worked with her. And if you were interested in her, like I was, which kind of, I had Emmanuelle, my rewatch of Emmanuelle recently, which happened at the weirdest time, was kind of my descent into this world, which it's all I've been watching in my downtime is watching Sylvia Kristel movies, and I've gained an appreciation for her performances thanks to not only this book, but because you see her in multiple contexts, and if she's just doing a bit part, or she's a starring role, or if she's front and center, she always seems to leave the viewer wanting more, leave the viewer with, they want her back on the screen. I just watched Playing with Fire last night, and, she's in that film for roughly about 10 minutes, and she plays a kidnap victim, and it's really sort of, it's a bit part, but she does a lot with it, and this book gets into that, and how she basically cultivated this career, tragically cut short by cancer, but this book does a great job at sort of encapsulating that. So if you are at all sort of curious, like I was, to dip into the world of Sylvia Kristel, I can't suggest this book enough. Like, I've referenced this book in way too many settings that I shouldn't have, because there's a lot of great knowledge in this book. Jeremy Ritchie has done his homework. He has given context and given breadth to this woman's career, and allowed other people to appreciate her the way he has. And I think that's the biggest gift that this book can do. It's the biggest gift that he has done with his sort of, with this book, with his gift, is sort of give this woman and her career a second sort of reappraisal, and given as a reason to reappraise it, which is not easy. So if anything I've said has interested you, I highly suggest you seek this out and check it out, because it's definitely worth the money alone for the production value and for how it's put together, but also the information contained in it is stuff you can't easily Google. You can't just, in this world where you're like, oh, I'll just Google it, I'll just download it. You can't Google this stuff. This is stuff that, he's pulled from, Danish film magazines and, interviews and all this stuff. This isn't stuff that you can just pull off the Google. So, it's here. It's for fans. It's for people looking to explore her career, explore her filmography, and learn about who Sylvia Kristel was through her films. Thank you for watching. I'm blathering on like an idiot. Thanks to Cold Epics. Thank you, Jeremy Ritchie, for writing this great book, and thank you for watching most of all. Bye.